What's your reaction to President Biden dropping out of the race?
Well, I think that it's not totally surprising. I think the timing is interesting because the Republicans had a great week and a good convention, but now this will dominate all of the media channels. So all of that momentum that the GOP has coming out of a good convention might be thwarted because now the attention will be on who the nominee will be, who the vice presidential nominee could be, and whether the Democrats will be in chaos or will they, really coalesce against a new team.
So what does this mean for the presidential run now?
Well, it means at the moment uncertainty. So President Biden dropped out and he endorsed Kamala Harris, but he did not tell all of his delegates who were committed to voting for him at the convention to vote for her. He didn't technically transfer them. So when he drops out, it's an open convention. So she may be the front runner for a little while, but it's possible somebody else can get more of those delegates to come over to them. The second question, of course, would be who would the VP be? So there'll be two simultaneous contests for the Democrats, the top of the ticket and the second part of the ticket. And they only have a couple of weeks. The convention for the Democrats starts August 19th, technically, to really get this going. And I think it's going to be interesting to see if they can pull it off.
So the money that has been donated to the Biden campaign, what would happen to all of those funds?
Yeah, so the Biden campaign, if it's the campaign for president of the United States, could transfer money to another campaign for the president of the United States. The Democratic National Committee can use the money to support any Democratic nominee. So the money that is in the Biden campaign may have to be returned and then to the donors and then redirected. So that's one way. But the PAC that the Democrats have been raising money for Biden with can, in fact, then turn its attention to supporting the next nominee.
So he recently put out a tweet saying that he endorses Kamala Harris to be the next, presidential candidate. What would she then need to do? Accept that nomination, or what happens next?
No, so the problem with the Democrat Party is that she can't just step in. The convention, these delegates have to be legally reallocated. Voters went to the primary polls and voted for President Biden and told these delegates to vote for President Biden to be renominated. Now they are released, but that's a technical process, and they have to actually do this in the context of the convention. So they can be presumptive if they want to say, we're all going to support Kamala Harris, but technically she won't have a nomination until they vote for her. So this is going to give the Republicans a window of about 4 weeks to make all sorts of legal claims, claim that it's cheating, that the Democrats are changing candidates in the last minute. But I think that's a tough argument to make. American voters have said they think Biden was too old to run again. Democrats have said they want a new nominee. So it's unclear to me that the Republican Party can tell the Democratic Party how to choose its nominee.
So, Biden obviously recently diagnosed with COVID. We saw the presidential debate, kind of all the talk about that. We saw the assassination attempt of President Trump. Do you think that this was the best time for Biden to drop out? Or should he have done it sooner or later? What's kind of your opinion on that?
President Biden was clearly running up against the clock. And in that sense, donors to the Democratic Party had frozen their gifts and had said, we're not giving him any more money. So he was spending all of his money, and there's no way you can run a campaign without money. So in the end of the day, it was really those decisions by major donors to the party that really sort of collapsed his capacity to keep running. He was waiting to be shown that a different ticket would do better against Donald Trump and now J.D. Vance than his current ticket with Kamala Harris. I don't think anybody showed them those polls because I don't think they exist yet. And so he was waiting, reluctant to, give up certainty on the nominee for chaos. And that is the big Achilles heel for the Democratic Party going to 2024 now. Will it just be chaos, or will they regroup very quickly and start running with a presumptive ticket even before the nominations happen?
In the history of the United States, have we ever seen anything like this? Is this common, uncommon, very unique?
Well, we've seen incumbent presidents, Lyndon Johnson, most notably in 1968, say they weren't going to run. That was in March of an election year. And in those days, the campaign started much later. So it was still in the beginning of the primary process. And so he dropped out. And then we had the assassination of Robert Kennedy. And so that led to Hubert Humphrey as vice president being the nominee. So we've had that. In 1972, the Democratic candidate had to step aside the leader, and McGovern got the nomination. So the Democrats have not been successful when there have been challenges to the incumbent sitting president or that president has stepped aside. So this is the big challenge historically for the Democrats. Can you really launch this campaign? The only saving grace for the Democratic Party is that voters are very familiar with Donald Trump. That seems to be their hope, that they don't have to sort of re-educate voters about their opponent. Voters already have their minds made up. They've been looking for an alternative to Joe Biden, and now it's up to the Democratic Party to give them a viable, electable alternative.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to add, Wendy, that I forgot to ask that you think would be important for this story?
One more thing. The risk for the Republican ticket, has been that Donald Trump has already been very disciplined, but we saw in his acceptance speech, he was starting to go off the ranch a little bit. If he and J.D. Vance go really negative and really ramp up the rhetoric in the next couple of weeks and make it personal against Kamala Harris, I think that's going to boomerang and backfire and re-engage and energize Democratic voters that have been sort of a little bit lukewarm. They could end up mobilizing voters that they have now are disillusioned, but really could get back into the game if they're not careful with the way they talk about Kamala Harris.